Namaste. Ninth standard. The lesson The Portrait of Lady by Khushwant Singh. Today we will discuss the comprehension question and answers and the other questions relating to it. So the first question C1, that is comprehension, first part. Discuss in pairs and find the answers for the following questions. First question is read paragraph number 2. There are a few lines which say about the grandmother's features. Pick out those lines and write them. So the answer is the grandmother was short fat. So the physical feature of a grandmother, that is her stature of a grandmother, you have to write. In that lesson, you can find the grandmother was short, fat, and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross, a wrinkle running from all the sides. Her silver locks were shattered untidily over her pale face, puckered face. So, this is the stature of a grandmother. So, you have to write. What you have to write is she was short and fat, and she was slightly bent. Her face was crisscross of wrinkles running from all the sides. Her silver locks were shattered untidily over her pale, puckered face. So, next question. Second question, she used to get me ready for school. How did the grandmother get the author ready to the school? So, you have to tell here, you have to write here how the grandmother got the grandson ready for the school in the village. So, now you have to write the author's grandmother used to wake him early in the morning, bathe him, and dress him, all the while singing the morning prayer. Then she would give him his breakfast of thick chapati with butter and sugar. She would then hand him his wooden slate, tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen, all tied in a bundle, and take him to the school. So this is the description said in the lesson about how grandmother used to get ready the grandson to the school. What is the answer? The author's grandmother used to wake him up in the early morning, bathe him, and dress him up, all a while singing the morning prayer. Then she would give him breakfast of thick chapati with butter and sugar. She would then hand him a wooden slate, tiny earthen ink pot, and a bundle of red pen, all tied in a bundle, and take him to the school. Next question. Why did the grandmother accompany the author to the school? So, the reason why she used to accompany the author to the school. Now you have to write the reason here. The author's school was attached to the temple. So the temple and the school were adjacent beside each other. While he studied in the school, the boy used to study in the school. His grandmother used to sit in the temple reading the scriptures. Now, answer is the author's school was attached. The temple and the school were beside each other, side by side. While he studied in the school, his grandmother used to sit in the temple and read scriptures. Question number 4. That was a turning point in our relationship. What was the turning point? What was the turning point? Some sudden change. Turning point means a sudden change in the life. So, what was the turning point in the author's and grandmother's life? The answer is after the author's parents settled in the city comfortably, they brought both the author and his grandmother to the city. That was a turning point in their relationship. So when they when they moved to city along with their parents, that was the turning point, sudden change in the life of Khushwant Singh, that is grandchild and grandmother. Fifth question. What made the grandmother unhappy and why? The answer is in the city, the author started going to the English medium school. He would come home and tell his grandmother English words, Western science, the law of gravity, Archimedes' law, principles, the world being round, etc. So these all things were when he returned from the school, the boy used to tell all these things to his grandmother, explain him about all these things. So since she was not aware of all these things, she wouldn't understand what he is saying, and he cannot even help him in his lessons. So it made her unhappy. She was also upset that there was no teaching of God and the scriptures. So why she was upset? When the boy started going to the English medium school in the city, after returning from the school, he used to tell his grandmother, explain him about English words, Western science, and the law of gravity, Archimedes' principles, science, all these things he used to tell. But uh, grandmother did not understand all these things as she was not that educated. And one more thing, she was upset because she could not help the boy in his studies. And thirdly, she was unhappy because there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. Now coming to comprehension 2. In groups, discuss the answers for the following questions and present them before the class. Question number 1. The thought was almost revolting. What is the thought referred to? Why does the author use the word revolting? So, the thought was almost revolting. What is the thought referred to? Why does the author use the word revolting? So, now the answer should be the thought was that his grandmother had once been young. So, this being thinking about the grandmother, this was the question. Why did the grandson use not to think his grandmother as being young in the olden days? So why this is so? You have to write. The thought that his grandmother had once been young, pretty, and even had a husband was almost revolting to the author. It was revolting because since the time he remembered seeing her, she had been old and wrinkled. Now, therefore, he could not picturize her as a young and playing games and all. So, this is a revolting thought. So, as he has not seen her young, when he was born and when he started growing up, he is seeing his grandmother as old only, wrinkled face with the white gray hair. So he could not think of his grandmother being young and was must be having husband, and she used to play games and all. This thought he cannot compromise with his thoughts. Question number 2. How did the grandmother help the author as a boy during his school days? So the answer should be the author's parents had led him with his grandmother when they went to live in city. The author and his grandmother were good friends. She used to wake him up early in the morning, bathe him and dress him, and all the while singing the morning prayer, while the author used to like listening to the prayers. She used to pack his wooden plate, that is earthen ink pot, his red pen, all in bundle, and give him after providing him the breakfast of a thick chapati with the butter and sugar on it. Then she used to drop him to the school, wait him in the temple, reading the scriptures. And after the school hours, she used to take him back, that is, bringing him back to home. On the way, they used to throw stale chapatis to the dogs. So this is the answer. Early morning, since they get up in the early morning to the evening when they return. This whatever whatever she did with the author, that you have to write. Describe the relations between animal, birds, dogs and sparrow and grandmother. This is very important question. Answer. In the village, every day the grandmother used to carry with her some stale chapatis while taking the author to school. On their way back home, they used to break these chapatis and feed the stray dogs, that is, street dogs, who used to follow them till the home. After moving to the city, so this is whatever going on in the village. She used to carry some stale chapatis while going to the school, and while returning from the school, she used to make it pieces of the chapatis and throw it to the street dogs so that they can be feeded. So these dogs used to follow them till their home. Now, when after moving to the city, there was no street dogs. So as there was no street dogs, she could not, as she had a deep love for the animals and birds. She wanted to feed all, some or one or other animal or bird. So she took up something else. After moving to the city, since the grandmother could not go out, she used to feed the sparrows in the courtyard. In the afternoon, she would sit in the veranda breaking the bread into the bits, and hundreds of birds used to collect around her, chirping, and um, some used to sit on her legs, but she never used to shoo them away. So, from this, we come to know that she had a great affinity towards animals and birds and wanted to take care of them by feeding them. So, she had a great love for animals and birds. So, this is a way she used to show love towards them. So, by feeding them, she used to show love towards them. So, you have to write this. Describe the relations between the animal, birds, dogs, and sparrows with the grandmother. Describe the 3 stages of relationship between the author and his grandmother before he went abroad. So, what you have to write here? Answer should be: when the author lived in the village with his grandmother, she took complete care of him. As he was very small, she was very caring towards him. She used to give him bath, fed him and took him to the school. Then, when the author's parents took them to the city, this is second stage, he was sent to an English medium school. He spoke about English, science, etc., which were new to grandmother. So, all English words, science, these are very new to grandmother. So, she felt very awkward. She felt bad and scriptures were not taught. And one more thing that she didn't like, in the schools there is no teaching of scriptures. So the conversation got reduced. So she has no other topic to talk with her grandmother. So she reduced her conversation with this grandson. When the author went to the university, this is a third stage. When the author went to the university, he had a room for a grandmother, and a common link of friendship was snapped. So when he joined the university, there what happens, he was given, grandson, that is author, was given a separate room to study. So the common link of staying in the same room was cut off. So all the time she spent all the time in spinning and prayers and feeding the sparrows. So these are the 3 stages where the author and grandmother have faced. Question number 5. Grandmother and prayers were inseparable. Find instances from the lesson to justify his observation. So what will be the answer? You make 4 parts of this and write. While the author was living with his grandmother, she used to wake him up, get him ready for the school, and she used to keep chanting the prayers while dressing him up. The second is, in the city, when the author went to the university, his grandmother stopped talking to people and spent her entire time in the spinning wheel. and chanting the prayers. And thirdly, when author had to go to abroad for higher studies, she went to the station to see him off, and she hugged him and kissed him goodbye. All the while the grandmother did not stop chanting of the prayers. And fourthly, when the author returned from abroad after his studies, she was there in the station to receive him. Again she embraced him while she never stopped chanting the prayers. So these instances reveal that the grandmother and prayers were inseparable. Sixth, she thumped the sagging skin of the dilapidated drum. Has the description of the drum anything to do with the grandmother's explain? So this is also very important. See, answer is the grandmother had become extremely old and her skin also has become completely wrinkled and sagging. The drum she took to play was also very old. This phrase, sagging skin, describes the age of both the grandmother and the drum. So, grandmother was also old, her skin was also wrinkled and sagging. Even the drum she took to play was also very old and the skin was also had sagged. Question number 7. Did the grandmother predict her death and how? Yes, she had predicted her death. The day the author returned from abroad, she sang and played drum, singing about the warrior returning home. The next morning, she was laid up with a mild fever. Though the doctor said she would recover, but she predicted that her end was near, and it is because she did not chant and pray. She did not chant and pray. So she decided to stop talking to others and she will continue her chanting the prayers. Until her end came, she did not, she did as she told others and passed away with the Lord's name on her lips and the rosary beads on her hands. So, how she died. This is how she had predicted her death. Before, even though the doctor had told her she will recover, but she told the family members that her end is near, so she wanted to spend her remaining time in chanting the prayers as she has skipped the prayers the previous day. So she continued, she lied on the bed and she continued her chanting of the prayers with rosary in her hand. So ultimately she died on the bed with rosary in her hand and name of the Lord in her on her lips. So 8th question. How did the sparrows react with her early in her life and after her death? Answer should be, after settling in the city, grandmother took to feed the sparrows in the afternoon in the courtyard. She used to break the bread into the small crumbs, and hundreds of sparrows used to gather there in a crowd around her, picking the food. So, making this noise. Sometimes they used to even perch on her legs, but she never used to shoo them away. So, this is initially. So, when they just shifted to the city, she used to feed the sparrows and the hundreds of sparrows used to gather their crowd there and they used to pick the breadcrumbs she has thrown to them, and sometimes they used to perch on her legs and she never used to shoo them away. But after her death, where grandmother passed away, hundreds of sparrows flew and sat in the courtyard and veranda silently. Author's mother got some bread, broke them into some small crumbs, and threw them for the Spaniards, but even one sparrow, not even a one sparrow, took the food. They sat quietly, and when the grandmother's body was taken to the funeral, all the sparrows flew away, leaving the bread as it is. So, they never touched the breads thrown by author's mother. They just took whatever, when she was alive, grandmother was alive, they just took whatever she had thrown to them. When she used to feed, they used to pick it up. Then when she died, they did not touch a single piece. So this is the answer. One more answer is remain. What picture of the grandmother do you get from a reading of the lesson? This should be your personal answer, and you should write on your own. This is a assignment given to you. Question number 9 in comprehension 2. You have to write the answer of question number 9. So I expect you to read the lesson and write this answer in a paper, like a A4 size paper. Write the answer and keep it safely until we ask you to give for correction. Till then, take care. Namaste.